Lately, I've been feeling convicted about my sugar and phone addiction. As a follower of Jesus, I don't believe being on the treadmill of chasing dopamine is the abundant life he promises us, and we actually have the ability to be fully free of addiction. But it's not from doing a dopamine detox or quitting sugar or social media for 30 days, but something much more simple. So I have been trying to quit my phone and sugar addiction for over a decade now, which is crazy that I'm old enough to say that, but it's true. I've been on this constant treadmill of quitting, doing really well, and then falling off. My problem is that when I'm under high amounts of stress, or I give myself a break, I tend to overdo it because normally I eat fairly well. I cook a majority of our meals from scratch, a majority of our desserts from scratch, all of our juices I make on my own. I try not to buy any soda or anything like that. But again, when I just feel a little off or I need a little pick-me-up, I tend to gravitate towards certain things, which is not bad in and of itself. But because I have been addicted for so long, one little taste or one little scroll, I end up in holes of addiction again. It is time to make apple cider cinnamon donut bread. So my goal is to just get off of the treadmill. I want to escape this matrix of being a slave to everything in my life. Instead, I want to be in control of it. When it comes to my phone, I want to overcome this constant need for digital stimulation at all times, like in the shower, while I'm doing dishes, while I'm cooking dinner. Like, I don't want to have to need those things in order to be content. I want to be present and attentive for my kids, for my husband, for myself, and for the Lord. I feel like when I am constantly in these binging modes, I'm so much more foggy. I'm way more irritable. I am just so much less attentive. I feel so much less like myself, and that's just not who I want to show up as in this world. In the Bible, Jesus says that Satan's main objective is to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think it is so evident in our culture today that one of his strategies is to steal our health and our attention. And he's doing a fantabulous job at it. Well, it is probably 8-something at night. We just got back from some friends' houses, and this is the hardest part for me, honestly, when it comes to quitting sugar. It's the nighttime. My friend also gave me some of these, and when I tell you I used to eat bags of these in one sitting, I'm not exaggerating. These are my weakness. I just know if I eat all of these, I am gonna want more and more and more of something. So as of right now, I genuinely don't know what to do. I want to eat these and maybe drink some tea and go to bed. I don't know. I'm having an intense craving for sugar. I want to eat the whole rest of the cake that I baked earlier. It doesn't feel like anything will satisfy. But I also want chicken nuggets with ketchup. I don't quite know what to do with myself right now. Recently, I watched this video from Diary of a CEO. I think he has one of the best podcasts on the internet right now. And he interviewed this lady, Dr. Anna Lambert. I'm probably saying her name wrong, but she wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. This was one of the most fascinating interviews I've ever watched in my life, at least the most relevant to my life. She breaks down what dopamine is, how it affects our brain, and basically how our world has been engineered today in order for us to be addicted. She explains that one of the main objectives of our nervous system, of our bodies, is to remain in homeostasis, like this baseline of being okay. And anything that we experience that takes us out of that homeostasis is called stress. It could be good stress, bad stress, but our bodies are constantly trying to level us back out again and remain in homeostasis. And so how it does that is by giving us dopamine. Our bodies start to seek out what brings us pleasure that levels us back out again. So people who have high stressful jobs, live in maybe poverty, or even just have stressful lives for whatever reason, they are more vulnerable to addiction because they are constantly seeking out dopamine in order to level themselves out back to homeostasis. Now, that's not to say that your average stay-at-home mom is not vulnerable. I would even argue the opposite. I feel like when it comes to maintaining a household, that is our whole job, is to try to have our house in order and in peace, to avoid chaos. And so we are so susceptible to reaching for our lattes or our phone in order to kind of level ourselves back out again. We are constantly overstimulated and overwhelmed by things, or at least have the potential to be. And so I think it's very easy for us to pick up something like a coffee every single day, twice a day, or our phones and scroll, which these things are not bad in and of themselves, but I think because they are so engineered to be addictive, we end up addicted, and then we find ourselves needing the coffee in order to feel okay or like ourselves again. Or we end up scrolling in times that we should actually probably be present for our kids or our spouse or ourselves or the Lord. That is where the problem is. That is not the life that the Lord wants for us. Good morning. We have gotten such a late start to the morning because Augie slept in our bed last night, and whenever that happens, it's like he is trying to climb the Eiffel Tower in his sleep or something. Not only does he rotate, he doesn't just rotate, that I could deal with, but he climbs on me, he climbs on Tyler, he kicks, and he's just all over the place. So I'd never get any sleep when he's in our bed. So I slept in quite a bit. And now it's 9:30. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, but I really want to make an egg bake. I made this one other time before, and it was so delicious. And I've been trying to do more savory breakfasts. For me, I'm someone who can literally live off of cereal. The sugarier, the better. I can eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch every single day for the rest of my life. However, we know that that is just so backwards. Let's just think about that for a second. The fact that we are literally putting loads and loads and loads of sugar into our body the first thing in the morning when we wake up is kind of absurd. And I remember the first time I heard this thought that we should be eating more savory breakfast, and I was like, why? Literally, why? But obviously, we mature and we grow, and now I see why. So I'm gonna get started on an egg bake. After that, I wanna make some bagels, and after that, I wanna make some banana bread to take to my neighbors. That's the plan for today. Now, one reason why I think dopamine detoxes and 30 days quitting social media or sugar, the reason why I think these don't have lasting effects is because they don't address the root problem, which is our lifestyle in general. When that allotted time is up, we end up going right back to our old habits and old ways. You might get a few days after those 30 days, you might get a few weeks if you're super disciplined, but if you don't address the lifestyle issue, you're just gonna end up right back in the same habits and routines that you were in before. And that has been true for me. And so what I think actually truly works is mapping out what your ideal lifestyle is. Who do you want to show up in this world as? What does it look like to live a healthy, wholesome, holistic life? Even getting as specific as what does it look like when you wake up in the morning? For me, I would like to greet my family first. I would like to spend time with the Lord first before I even touch my phone. So thinking about your perfect, healthy day and life in detail, mapping out the habits you have, the routines you have, the food you eat, etc. And then start living that life. Create boundaries and rules for yourself that allow you the freedom to live that life and stick to it. That way, when you inevitably fall off, because you will, when you go to get back on track, you're not restarting your 30 days. You're not restarting the diet on Monday. No, you're actually just getting back to your regular life. And at first, it may be super difficult, maybe super hard, but eventually it becomes your lifestyle. You become that person that you've always wanted to be. And when you start to fall off, when you start to veer off track, your body almost kind of rejects that and bounces you back to the lifestyle that you created for yourself. You form a new normal, and so when you start to deviate, instead of you defaulting back to your old habits, it's actually a deviation from the lifestyle that you want to live. Not gonna lie, these are the times that are really hard for me to not go on my phone. I tried to switch to listening to audiobooks instead when I'm out here with them, but I find that because I am trying to focus so much on my audiobook, any interruption, like I'm still not present with them. In my brain, the book is happening. I'm in that world. And so then I tried switching to just YouTube videos. And again, it's the same thing. My goal overall is just to be present with my kids and not have them have to wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds for them to get my attention because I'm so lost in whatever world I'm in on my phone. Like I want them to have a present mom, and I find that when I'm trying to multitask, when I'm trying to find enjoyment from something else other than just being with them, then it makes me irritable or it makes me just not as attentive. So I think that listening to music would be fine, but also just not having to have any stimulation outside of just watching my kids play and being here now and enjoying them in this moment. In the interview, she says, we're losing the ability to have sustained thought. But I think we are also losing the ability to have sustained periods without digital stimulation. For me, it's so hard not to have something playing in the background when I'm doing something, when I'm sitting with my children, when I'm doing dishes, taking a shower, etc. It was so hard for me to just leave my phone down. But I find that when I return back to moments with my own thoughts or moments of prayer, worship, and telling my heart to the Lord or listening for His voice, I find that I feel so much more connected to myself, so much more rooted in who I am and less irritable. I just feel so much more present where I am. Today, I want to make banana bread for my neighbors, but although we got literally like 3 kilos worth of bananas a couple of days ago, my kids ate them all. So I need more bananas. I also need a scale because I want to try making brown butter cookies, and every time I make this recipe or a recipe from this person, if you don't measure the flour correctly, then it turns out gross. Not gross. You can tell it's too much flour. So I need to find a scale, and I also need just some other kitchen supplies. So I'm going to take you to my favorite store in the bazaar, which we call the kitchen store. Wow, they're selling heaters. Found it? It is finally time to make this banana bread for my neighbors. As believers, we also don't address the root cause of these addictions, which at the end of the day is a lack of self-control. Self-control is a fruit of the Holy Spirit, and if we're honest with ourselves, when we are addicted to sugar or our phones or anything for that matter, it is evidence of a lack of that fruit in our life. One thing I've learned about self-control is that it feels like a muscle. In the beginning, when you're trying to quit something, it feels really hard because we don't have that strength to overcome it. We need to exercise it, but the more that we do, the stronger that we get, the more that weight of temptation is easier to move because we've practiced over and over. We've strengthened that muscle of self-control in order to move it. However, it is not like a muscle in the sense that we can just exercise it at will. Again, it's a fruit of the Spirit of God, which means we need His help, His hand in order to grow it in our life. That looks like first acknowledging our need for Him, acknowledging that we are weak and that we literally cannot do it on our own, and praying constantly. There are so many scriptures that allow us to divert our attention back to Him, that remind us that He is actually all we need in our life to be content. On the Diary of a CEO, this expert also explains that whenever we experience dopamine or an immense amount of pleasure, our brain actually doesn't just stop there. She compares it to having these little gremlins that come whenever we have a dopamine experience. And these little gremlins don't just stop at balancing our dopamine levels, but they actually tip the scales in the opposite direction. So this is homeostasis. I hope you can hear me still. Imagine we're like this, and this is us not in homeostasis. This is us stressed out. We go and we seek dopamine, and so we start to level out. But these little gremlins on this side come also, and they actually increase our pain. So you don't get dopamine without also experiencing some sort of pain. And this can look like whenever you have too much to drink and then you have a hangover the next day. Or it can be as simple as whenever you have a piece of chocolate cake, you don't just want to stop there, you crave more. And that craving is not necessarily a positive experience. It makes you want more of something. You're not fully satisfied. You coming? Gonna help me take it over? Can you get it? You got it. So after she explained this, Stephen, the interviewer, he asked, why do our bodies do that to us? And she said, to make it short, that from an evolutionary perspective, in a world of scarcity, this allows us to constantly be seeking after resources, which I just found to be so interesting, but for a different reason. Because from a biblical perspective, it just shows you how we are literally intrinsically and biologically designed to not be satisfied with anything of this world except for God alone. I just thought that is so fascinating, that not a single piece of chocolate cake, not scrolling, not achieving all of your desires in life, nothing is equipped to fully satisfy you. You will always have those little gremlins that tip the scales and allow you to experience a little bit of pain along with it. Because honestly, if we could be fully satisfied and content in life with a piece of chocolate cake, then what is life really? Like, that would just diminish the whole novelty of life. So in a sense, I do think she is correct. Like, that keeps us seeking, but ultimately I think it keeps us seeking the Lord and to be satisfied by Him and Him alone.
Maybe.
Yes. Augie, leave the kitty. I feel very out of touch about what things cost in America. Please tell me, how much would a thing of eggs, I don't know, how much is here, like a pound, 2 pounds of sugar cost in America? Because here, this just costed me like roughly $5-6. But I'm thinking, like, is that cheap or is that roughly around what it would cost in America? You tell me. So I have a friend coming over in like 30 minutes and I can't start baking until she gets here because she has the molasses and it's far too early to start dinner. I don't know if any other moms struggle with this, but rarely do I have this chunk of free time. I'm like, what do I do? I struggle between, I could rest right now for 30 minutes. I can watch a YouTube video. I could just relax. Or I could be super productive. I could plan out my YouTube videos for the next month. I can brainstorm ideas. I can work on language. I can do so much productive stuff. My body is asking me to rest. I hate this feeling, actually. I actually really despise this feeling. I feel like if I rest, then I feel unproductive. So for me in my life, I've come up with the 80-20 rule. I want to live 80% healthy and 20% have the freedom and grace to eat and do things that are maybe not as healthy or not as productive, if you will. This is balance to me, and this is what feels like a healthy lifestyle, because if 80% of the time I can live healthy, I find that the other 20%, I actually end up gravitating towards the more healthy option to begin with. I don't want to crave those dopamine highs and constantly be overcoming and recovering from those crashes or those lows. I don't want to be on the treadmill anymore. So the 80-20 rule, I feel like, gives me the freedom to do that. I essentially just want to live in homeostasis, which the expert says is almost impossible in today's world. But we know with the Lord, nothing is impossible. In fact, I believe that is the life that He wants for us, to not be constantly chasing the highs and recovering from the lows, but living in the state of constant joy, peace. That is true homeostasis. But those are my thoughts on this subject. Would love to know yours. The next time I see you, I'll be in Thailand, actually. Surprise, surprise. But in the meantime, you should catch up on some of my other videos, and I will see you in the next one.